Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Russia to take steps if Finland joins NATO. Putin blames Western sanctions for global economic crisis. Russia has warned that it will have to take unspecified military technical steps in response to Finland's decision to join NATO, as Moscow continues to face setbacks in its invasion of Ukraine. The Russian Foreign Ministry said on Thursday that Finland's accession to NATO would inflict serious damage on Russian-Finnish relations, as well as stability and security in Northern Europe. It said in a statement that Russia will be forced to take retaliatory steps of military, technical, and other characteristics in order to counter the emerging threats to its national security. The statement noted that while it was up to Finland to decide on ways to ensure its security, Helsinki must be aware of its responsibility and the consequences of such a move. The ministry charged that Finland's move also violated past agreements with Russia. History will determine why Finland needed to turn its territory into a bulwark of military face-off with Russia while losing independence in making its own decisions, it added. The ministry's statement follows Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov's comment earlier on Thursday that Finland's decision would not help stability and security in Europe. Asked whether Finland's accession posed a direct threat to Russia, Mr. Peskov said, "Definitely. NATO expansion does not make our continent more stable and secure. This cannot fail to arouse a regret, and is a reason for corresponding symmetrical responses on our side," Mr. Peskov added. Russian officials have spoken in the past about potential measures including stationing nuclear-armed missiles on the Baltic Sea. Asked on Wednesday if Finland would provoke Russia by joining NATO, Finland's President Sauli Niinisto said, "My response would be that you caused this. Look at the mirror." Sanctions against Russia provoking global economic crisis. Russian President Vladimir Putin says Western sanctions against Russia are provoking a global economic crisis. Vladimir Putin makes it clear in his Victory Day speech he will not relent in his war in Ukraine. But as young Russians fear for their future, he risks losing their ongoing support. Read more. Speaking during a Thursday meeting on economic issues, Mr. Putin said Western nations were driven by oversized political ambitions and Russophobia to introduce sanctions that hurt their own economies and well-being of their citizens. Mr. Putin charged that the sanctions are provoking a global crisis, and will lead to grave consequences for the EU and also some of the poorest countries of the world that are already facing the risks of hunger. He alleged that the Western elites are ready to sacrifice the rest of the world to preserve their global domination. The Russian leader insisted the Russian economy has successfully withstood the blow from Western sanctions and that Russian companies would fill the niche left by the withdrawal of Western enterprises. Most civilians evacuated from Azovstal steel plant after a weeks-long siege and multiple failed evacuation attempts. Ukraine forces reported that almost all civilians trapped in bunkers underneath the Azovstal steelworks had escaped. Meanwhile, talks are underway between Kyiv and Moscow on the possible evacuation of 38 severely wounded Ukrainian fighters who remain inside steelworks, Ukraine's deputy PM said on Thursday afternoon. Residents of the cities taken and held by the invading forces reveal what life is like under Russian occupation, where the supermarket shelves are bare and masked foreign soldiers roam the streets. Read more. The steel mill is the only remaining stronghold of Ukrainian resistance in the ruined Black Sea port town, and is now surrounded by Russian forces. "We are working step by step," Irina Vereshchuk wrote in a public post on the Telegram Messenger app. She said Kyiv hoped to exchange the soldiers for 38 significant Russian prisoners of war, before moving on to the next stage of the negotiations. She did not specify what this next stage would concern, but said that there were no negotiations on the exchange of 500 or 600 people. Demonstrators, mostly women, marched through central Kyiv on Thursday, holding banners and chanting, "Save defenders of Mariupol, save Azovstal, glory to the heroes of Mariupol, and save the military of Azovstal." Maria Zimava, whose relative is an Azov battalion fighter, said tearfully, "I want all the defenders who are there to return home so that they can continue a normal life with their children and relatives." Earlier on Thursday, An official at the Ukrainian president's office said that Kyiv hoped to extract 500,000 wounded Ukrainian fighters from Azovstal. Members of the Azov regiment holed up inside the plant have repeatedly refused to surrender, citing fears of being killed or tortured. Space to play or pause.